Hi, and welcome everyone to Harry Potter and the Totally Normal Hangout. It's episode number 8, and we are discussing Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, chapters 11 through 15. I'm Emily, and I am drinking some strawberry wine spritzer or something. I'm halfway through it already. It's been a night. We are back in full force. Zanib is here. Her voice is back. Lorena is back from her adventures in Portugal. And Jamie is here. We're back full force. And we have our quick spell question of the week. I'm going to give you the question, and then we're going to go around and let everybody introduce themselves and let you know what they're drinking. So I'm going to give you the question and the hashtag to remind you what you need to do to follow along with us. This question tore our Twitter or our text thread apart. So when it's the Sesame Street tweeted out, which character would you want to be trapped on a desert island with? We went ballistic. So it was hysterical. And now we want to know a Harry Potter themed one. If you had to be stuck on a desert island with one of the 4 Hogwarts founders, which one would it be? So think on that. Remember to follow us on the hashtag TNTalksHP. Don't forget to give us your thoughts and questions on the socials, on Twitter, or live in the YouTube chat on in the Hangout with the hashtag TNTalksHP. I'm gonna say Salazar Slytherin, and I'll come back to that. But Jamie, why don't you go first and tell me that, and then I'll explain why Salazar.
All right. I am Jamie. I have absolutely nothing exciting tonight. I just have water. I was a little behind on my daily intake of water, so I'm just trying to catch up. And I am a Ravenclaw, but I actually picked Helga Hufflepuff for this for a couple of reasons. Because I feel like if you are trapped on a desert island with someone or stranded with someone, I feel like there are 2 things that are important. And one of them is obviously staying safe and alive while you are there and trying to figure out how to get off said island. And Hufflepuff, I feel like, what are the things that Hufflepuff House values? It's, working hard and patience and kind of tenacity. And I feel like those are good qualities to have in the person that is there with you. There's going to be a lot of teamwork. And bouncing ideas back and forth. And I think she would be the best for that. And also, we know that Helga has a special talent for food-related charms, which obviously is going to come in handy on a desert island. So she is my pick. Zanib, why don't you go next?
Hey everyone, I'm Zanib. I'm also drinking water. It's 9 p.m., so it's like, okay, I gotta hydrate for the full day. Okay, did we go over our houses? I like totally had a brain fart, but
you can say it.
Yeah, okay, Gryffindor. So I would actually pick Rowena Ravenclaw. I think that, to me, she's like the quintessential character of Athena from Greek mythology. And if you're stuck on an island, I think that, hey, she's smart enough to have ideas on some creative activities that we can do, like 99 ways to use a coconut, ways to get off the island, but also while we wait for, maybe a wizard or a ship to come rescue us, we can like play bongos or, any other activities that might come to play. And I might get to learn something too.
Lorena?
Hey, I'm Lorena. So yeah, I was in Portugal with the Niffler, and I actually have a cool and related souvenir. which is this Portuguese copy of Chamber of Secrets. And I purchased it at, and I'm going to mess up the name, Livraria Lelo, which is the bookstore that inspired J.K. Rowling to create Flourish and Blots, which we kind of are introduced to as a place in this book. So it was super exciting, beautiful bookstore, totally see why it would inspire her. And then we also got to see some of the ugly, weird stuff that the dictator Salazar put in place in Porto when we were in Porto. And yeah, he was not an awesome person. So, you know, that's her namesake for Salazar's Slytherin, which, you know, oh well, I'm a Slytherin, so it's okay. But yeah, it was very cool to see that kind of stuff. And then also they have their university students there, is what inspired her, like the wizarding, like the kids out, the Hogwarts uniforms. And it was creepy. Like you were walking along, we stopped in this one like university town basically. And it's like medieval streets and everything's old. And then these 19-year-old kids are walking with their books like very studiously, and they have like full black robes on and are just like going to class or coming from class. And it was hilarious and like startling because there's all these other students in normal clothes that aren't in class at that time, just, you know, milling about. And it was just, I don't know, it was really funny. It felt very like, here's the wizards and everyone else is a muggle. But anyway, so that's my Portugal recap. And then I'm drinking beer as basically always. And then who I would want to be stuck with actually is Helga Hufflepuff as well. And I definitely would not be choosing Slytherin because I would not trust Salazar to care about me at all. So because I am a Slytherin, I think that me and Helga would get on very well. I find that I get on well with Hufflepuffs, and that I am a very much work smarter, not harder person. So I could come up with those ideas, and then she would have, you know, that kind of conversational brainstorm, hardworking, stuff that Jamie's talking about. But then she also has that loyalty factor that I think all the other you know, founders are going to be lacking. And when you're trying to get off an island, you want that loyalty there. You want both of you getting off and not just one person. So that's why I went with Helga. Why'd you go with Salazar, Emily?
So I know it's a bold choice, especially being a Ravenclaw, and I find it interesting that none of us picked our own houses. I thought that was fascinating. I also found it fascinating that none of us picked Godric Gryffindor. So
no, he's gonna like try something stupid and out there on like the first night, thinking that that's gonna work, and then you're both gonna be doomed. Yeah,
right. I loved that. I was like, we're all like, nope, no Gryffindor. So I think that that's really funny. But I thought I could learn a lot of actually, you know, good magic from him, good things that I wasn't going to get. I was torn between Helga Hufflepuff and Slytherin, but I would be getting one-on-one private lessons. But I did say I did also think he could end up murdering me if I didn't perform well enough. But I was hoping my Ravenclaw studiousness would help him see I would be worthy of his tutelage. And I was like, I don't think I could pass that up. So I was like, I was going to take advantage of the time given to me. And I think that, you know, I've heard that Rowena Ravenclaw is a little bit flighty, given what we've seen of the Grey Lady and Helena. You know, I didn't want to pick her, but that's why I was like, Helga Hufflepuff would be my next in line. So, But I loved that none of us picked our own houses and none of us picked Godric Gryffindor. So I loved it.
Yeah, I'm a Gryffindor, but I don't think I could be able to trust him. It's just,
Yeah.
that courage can take you so long, but it's
Mhm.
getting off an island. I don't know. You need smarts and basically food charms for that.
Yeah, I loved it. Well, are we ready to dive into the dueling club?
Let's do it.
Um, I found one thing when I was adding to our outline. I found the dates, which always surprise me, and
I saw that.
I know I'm the old one of the group, old in quotation marks. Um, and it always baffles me because when I was reading these, I never associated them with my timeline. I didn't want to ever assign a date to them. But what age were you when this takes place? So the Dueling Club put at November 8th, 1992. So this is happening 1992, 1993. What was going on in your guys' lives during this point?
I had just turned 4.
Oh my gosh.
So, right? 92,
Okay.
89, 92. Yes, I had just turned 4, like the week before the dueling club takes place. So yeah, I was a little one then.
Lorena or Zanib?
I was 7.5-ish, and I was really into Aladdin. Like
Okay.
Aladdin was one of my first cassettes, so I listened to the soundtrack on. I had like a portable cassette thing, and I would plug it in downstairs and sing along.
Okay.
It was very cool.
And Zanib, where were you in 1992?
I was a baby. I was being fed through a bottle.
Oh my gosh.
I don't remember anything.
Okay, for those listening, I'm like feigning incredulity. This
I
was my
feel old,
senior,
and I was 7.
okay, this was my senior year of high school. Okay,
Oh boy.
this was my senior year of high school. Like as I was reading this, and we'll get to this the next chapter. Like, and it said something, and one of the chapters actually takes place the day I graduated from high school, the day my commencement speech happened, and
Oh man.
I was like, oh my gosh, that's the day I graduated from high school. So, I mean, I was only 17, but that was just
Well,
it was.
I mean, in comparison, Zanib was like a fetus. That's,
I was like, this is so mind-boggling to me because I don't associate Harry Potter being only a few years younger than me. It just doesn't compute at all to me. So, I mean, it just doesn't. He's much younger than me. He's like your guys' age to me, but yet you guys are my age to me. So
Yeah.
anyway, okay. The Dueling Club. I want to start before we get into what actually happened with the Dueling Club. It's being run by Snape and our
Lockhart.
our favorite Lockhart. But I found it weird because Flitwick is a dueling champion. They like say that he is a dueling champion. He was a master duelist after he left school. Why isn't he leading the dueling club?
Well, I think that's obvious. Gilderoy Lockhart is a blowhard, and he's going to take over that because he's the defense against the arts teacher. And Snape's like, oh my God, these poor kids, I have to help them. Like,
but why isn't Flitwick standing up?
Right. Why wasn't this Flitwick's idea? This was my biggest takeaway from this chapter is that all this stuff is happening and the kids are like, everyone's talking to each other. They don't know what's going on. Like what? And like seemingly no one is really telling them anything. Like what is the school doing to assure kids that they are safe What safety precautions are they putting in place? Like, none of this is happening. They're just, everything is going on like normal when
Right.
all these people are being petrified. Like, the kids are going to be scared. Like, the adults here are doing absolutely nothing. Like, yeah, if this was going to happen, Flitwick should be doing it. Even if Lockhart was the one he said what, he had to go to Dumbledore and ask permission to do it. Dumbledore could have been like, you know what, a dueling club is a good idea, but I'm going to ask Flitwick to do it. He's, a master, dueling champion or whatever. They're just kind of like giving this big shrug, like, well, what are you going to do? I don't know.
Yeah,
and it's ridiculous.
To me, it really supports when Lucius comes in and wants to have Dumbledore removed. And I think that, like, we know he has ulterior motives in that, but what are Dumbledore's ulterior motives? Like, why the hell is he leaving the school open? Why isn't he doing more? Like, this is your job. Your job is to run a safe school. I mean, that's the whole purpose and function of this school. And if there's a petrifying monster on the loose, like, Hermione Granger shouldn't be the only person who is able to figure out what the hell this thing is. Like, it just, like, and you're reading Harry's mind. You should know by now, like, guy who speaks to snakes can hear voices. Like, clearly you've read this in his mind. Why isn't this pieced together? Why don't they have, like, all the signs are really obvious. It shouldn't take the Scooby-Doo crew of 12-year-olds to figure this out, put us into it, and just, like, be done. Like, the whole thing, it's like Dumbledore's like, oh, we need this whole thing to play out so that Harry can do some other thing to lead him closer to his ability to defeat Voldemort ultimately. Like, it's just this weird, ugh.
These 12-year-olds have way too much autonomy. And
yes, and then, like, they're scared to be overheard. I'm like, why are you scared to be overheard by Madame Pomfrey? What is she gonna do? Send you to bed? Like, you're already in bed. So stupid. The whole thing, great.
And what private school or this school, why does the headmaster leave so freaking often that, like, I've never seen a headmaster leave so often, where that, especially in a time of chaos, like, that would be, of course Lucius Malfoy has a grounds for wanting him removed. He's never present and not doing his job.
Mm-hmm.
And what's Dumbledore rushing to? I mean, like, you're the headmaster. It's not like you're teaching anybody. Or, I mean, the whole dueling situation feels like Fight Club. Don't talk about, Fight Club. Like, don't talk about it. Just fight it out. And, like, again, no ground rules.
Right, like, this is kind of a big deal. Like, it's not just like, oh, this is an administrative issue that needs to just run its course. Like, they're not dying yet, but still, like, people are being attacked in his school, and yeah, he's just going off, doing whatever.
But now it can lead to death. Like, last time this happened, someone died.
Right. And so far, it's just been coincidence that no one has died, because no one has looked it in the eye. Like, many of these people could be dead, and someone could die at any time.
I mean, if you're being petrified, there's only so many options it could be. It's a creature. It has to have the ability to petrify. And then there's all these, like, situational things that if you opened your eyes, like, McGonagall's present at almost every single one of the incidents. Why hasn't she figured it out? And maybe she has, and she's tried to tell Dumbledore, and he's just ignoring her like he did in chapter 1 of book 1. But, that's his trend. I don't know. It's very difficult for me to have any positive affection towards Dumbledore at this point. And I definitely feel in favor of the Malfoy method here, I'll say. Also, the dueling club itself is a dumb idea, because it's not run, as we said, with any organization to it at all. And it doesn't result in anything except, like, everyone learning that Harry's a Parseltongue. Like, that's almost, it just feels like a literary technique for revealing this information to the school so that Harry can be ostracized by his peers. And
I mean, I can see why the kids would want to sign up for it, though, because it's like, you know, right, because no one is taking care of this for them. They feel like this is, it's like taking a self-defense class, essentially.
Right. And it's fun,
Right.
And they've yet to learn anything like a defensive skill. They're like, wait, teach me that thing again. What was it that you said? Because they've yet to have an actual defense teacher teach them anything.
Right. I mean, and when Umbridge shows up, she's like, you guys are really behind. And it's like, yeah,
actually we are.
Thanks, Tom.
They're learning things like a jelly legs jinx. What good is a jelly legs jinx going to do in the real world? Nothing.
No. I mean, it's a false sense of security. And I mean, the fact that Lockhart is the one that's like spearheading this endeavor means, it's going to be useless. But I mean, again, we kind of talked last time about how, people like Lockhart can just, I mean, that there's a decent amount of like the young girls who are there because, Lockhart is teaching it. And he's like, they think at this point that he's like this dashing hero and, they can learn something from him. But
I think this is
a case 12.
I mean, well, they say the whole school almost shows up. So I feel like this is a case where the movie actually is better than the book for this scene. It just felt more organized in the movie, whereas in the book it was more. It had better character development, but in the book, but it was less entertaining, I think, and more just what the heck's going on.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, what from the spells that you are aware of, what spells can you think of that would be useful as a young witch or wizard that you would need to know? I mean, because Dueling Club will teach you all these other spells. What can you think of? Expelliarmus,
Protego. I think a confundus type charm where you can confuse someone. I think a stupefy.
Yeah.
The blasting charm's a little dangerous, so I don't know about that.
Right. But I mean, when you think of what it is that they're learning or what they have learned, they are barely getting. I mean, what are the useful things? I think we talked about this last time, Jamie, that what is the use of transforming a beetle into a button? Or why are we transfiguring things like owls into opera glasses and things like that? Because what is the point of these small household magic spells what is the usefulness in the real world when it comes to magic, and how is that going to translate?
Well, I think it would be like pre-algebra or algebra, like math. Like you need to learn basic elements to build on, to understand the larger concepts, to build a rocket that flies into space and then comes back. So that, like to be able to mathematically do something practical in the real world, you have to have a really basic building block of having.
You have to have a foundation.
Yeah, and like when they come in their first year, they don't know crap, and they're only in second year now, and they can't. The only time they can do magic is at school, so they're going to a Transfiguration 3 times a week or something. Mm-hmm. It's not like they have the same class every day. It doesn't feel like they have potions with Snape every day. I feel like we don't hear about that. It's not like every day they have, this same classes over and over again. So they're only getting 3 hours a week or something of Transfiguration and for the school year, and it's like a 3-term school year.
It would make sense if they had more, like not dueling each other, but having dummies like they did in the 5th book for Dumbledore's Army. Everybody met together. I mean, it would, because again, you have kids ranging from 12 to 17. 18, I want to say. So it would make sense to put everyone on the same playing field. But then again, it's Hogwarts and all the adults are stupid.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I still play the Harry Potter game. I know it's ridiculous, but like hex deflection, impedimentia, stupefy. I'm looking at the Mimble Wimble binds the target's tongue to keep him or her from talking about a specific subject. I mean, like these are the spells that they're teaching the class in Defense Against the Dark Arts. A trip jinx, and so it's interesting, and they give you like an option of the dueling club, and there are certain ones that you spells that you can use during dueling club when you go. So it is interesting, and there's like certain ones that you can like bombarda, and you can use that against your opponent. So I just find it interesting because there was a fan fiction. It's like these lesser spells and charms are not going to really prepare you for what is out there and what is going to come, which is, I think, why we learn later on in the books why we start Dumbledore's army, and Harry starts training everybody up for what is actually to come. So
yeah.
Anyway,
but I also think, like, do you really want to be preparing everyone for a war when there shouldn't even be a war? It's like, let's give all of these 11-year-olds guns and then teach them how to shoot. Is like what, so is that really wise? No, it's not. And it's not really necessary. Like, it ends up being necessary. And there's a lot of like little foreshadow comments in these chapters that sort of imply this. Like Ron's like, this might be useful someday. And, Ron's the character that always says the correct thing, even though he doesn't realize he's saying it. But it's just, it shouldn't be necessary. Like, they shouldn't need to ever know this. They should, like, being able to perfect your food should be way more important than being able to protect yourself from a negative, like a lethal attack from a person in a war against you, right? Like, that's just, it doesn't end up being that way, but that's how it should be. And so I can see where a school wouldn't want to be actively teaching, how to combat, essentially.
totally.
I mean, it's one of those things, it shouldn't be necessary, but sadly is.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, no, they would not need any of that, but they do.
Yeah. Well, before we move on from chapter 11, Zanib, what did you want to talk about the polyjuice potion?
Yeah, because Hermione steals in this one.
I was just surprised that Snape hadn't put a charm, on his supposed personal stash of potions. I mean, you think, because we're in the second book, but we, at this point, we know that he's the type of person to be very private and keep things bottled in, and you would think that would reflect on his property. So I was just surprised. Hey, I yes, Hermione, she's smart, she's amazing, I love her, but she's still 12 and she's learning, and it's, I mean, I assuming there are like other more dangerous, poisonous ingredients along with, stuff to make the polyjuice potion. So I was just a bit taken aback that he hadn't put a charm on it or something, some sort of booby trap.
Yeah, because you have to figure potions is, I mean, if you're going to compare it to, it has like a chemistry kind of aspect to it. And yeah, if you are going to be like a chemistry teacher and have all these, solutions and stuff like that, like, yeah, you're going to want to like put some kind of child lock on that so people cannot get in there for this reason exactly. But, I don't know, because he notices it later, right, in Goblet of Fire, right, when
the gillyweed goes
when
missing.
the gillyweed goes missing. So I don't know.
Maybe
I
gillyweeds were rare.
Right, like, I guess, yeah, if the things she's stealing are not all that like it wouldn't be all that noticeable.
But
if
he
they were
does
gone,
notice
but still.
that there's theft again in book 4 for Polyjuice potion ingredients.
Right.
So he does notice those too. I mean, but I don't know how much what's his face Barty is
right, because like
he's everything.
Right, because and he's doing it. This stuff is lasting, so he can drink it every day, all year. Like Hermione just wants enough to make their one little potion full. So maybe it wasn't that much for him to notice, but yeah, I still think he would have some kind of enchantment on his, on his stuff, so that students could not be sneaking in. Especially once like Fred and George are students there, you got to keep that stuff locked up.
Seriously.
Right. And like you could argue she would maybe use Muggle means, but he's half Muggle, so like he would know how to protect against that as well. Just undermines Snape's intelligence.
Yeah. Well, it's the perfect segue to the next chapter, which is Polyjuice Potion. So, Jamie, what did you want to say about Polyjuice Potion?
Well, my biggest thing about this one is that the Polyjuice Potion, they have spent all this time getting all these ingredients and brewing it perfectly, and they get the hairs and they are ready to go, and they know that they're going to have like an hour or something, and they've decided what they're going to do with Crabbe and Goyle. This thing is planned down perfectly, and then they transform and go out, and they're like, oh, we got to figure out where the Slytherin common room is. Like, all this other stuff is planned, and then the clock is ticking, and they're just like aimlessly wandering around the castle, having no idea where to go. Like, you would think that this is the kind of detail they would nail down so that they are not wasting time with this. But when they finally get there, I thought it doesn't really help the Slytherin cause that the password to get into their common room is pure blood. I mean, they have like this bad reputation of being like, that prejudiced house, and there are, plenty of great people in Slytherin. But the fact that that is what the password is not great. That's not really going to improve their reputation. I mean, I presume other students in other houses do not know this, but still, I don't think it's great. I don't know who sets the passwords. You would think it would maybe be like Snape or something, because he's the head of house, but I don't know. I don't think it said, did it? Like, we know that the lady, the portrait that like guards the
fat lady,
Gryffindor common room, the fat lady, and we know that. I mean, we find it out later that in the Ravenclaw common room, there's like a door knocker or something that like asks you a question or something like that.
Yeah, it's a riddle,
right? And we don't really know what happens here. It just sounds like you kind of talk at the door and it swings open or something.
Well, doesn't it slide apart?
It slides apart. Either way, it opens. But yeah, I'm not really sure if any sort of magical being or entity or thing is, guarding the...
Well, I think that door isn't like visible, so it's like hidden, so you have to know where it is and then say the password in order for it to open. So I think that's the protection,
right?
But I don't know who sets the password.
Right.
It's never really clearly stated.
Yeah,
I know from my research. So I just had it as the top Slytherin, so like the head prefect or whatever of Slytherin would be who would be able to change it.
That makes sense.
A seventh year, essentially.
Yeah. And when they get in there, I forgot, because I have not read this one in a while, but like Malfoy is such a little shit. Like, and we know this, like, I know, and I'm trying, like, he's only 12 and he has grown up his entire life in a house full of people who have these horrible, you know, beliefs and values and everything. So, but still, I'm like, he's talking, and I'm like, you little, like, it was bad. I end up liking Draco more as a character later on in some of the later books, but in these early ones, he really is just a slimy little son of a bitch. I know.
In the movie, he's sitting on the edge of the couch, and he picks up this box that is like a gift, obviously, and he sees it, and he looks at Crab and Goyle, and he's like, "Is this yours?" And both of them shake their head and say no, and he's like, "Oh, okay," and then pockets it, and I'm just like, "My gosh, you are such a little shit." And it's like, has no issues taking it for, he shakes it, and he's like, "Is this yours?" "Nope." "Great." Pockets it in the robe, and it's like, oh, you are such a
and he rips out the page earlier in the movie when they're in the bookstore, just like for shits and giggles. Like, he just has no respect for anything, and he's never been disciplined about having respect for anything, so why would he? Yeah, he is a little shit. But I do love that he reveals the hiding spot to Ron inadvertently, and now Ron's like, "Oh, I can go tell my dad about this," and they can, finally be able to catch Malfoy. Like, this is great. So I thought that was really hilarious. The scene it's a lot more fun in the book. I hadn't read it, and it's just it's like intimate to Weasley and Potter in a way that you don't expect. It's gonna be, and he doesn't know. So it's just like, this is how, like, I don't know how Malfoy has friends at all. Like, I wouldn't consider Crabbe and Goyle friends the way he treats them in this scene. They're just like people
lackeys.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like he doesn't respect anyone at all, regardless. And he's awful. He's so awful. If I was an older kid in Slytherin when he was there, I would just be like, we got to put this kid in his place so he knows where he belongs, which is not as far up as he thinks he is. But yeah.
Why none of those other kids ever did, I don't know. But
I think Lucius Malfoy is why.
Right. I was going to say, he has this, powerful father. Yeah.
Yeah, his father threatens their families. So, which is kind of pretty explicitly stated later in the book. And then, but at the beginning, there's two things I wanted to hit on. One was, there's three things. So the beginning of this chapter, because we kind of actually skipped this in her prior chapter chat, a lot happens actually in Dueling Club, not about the Dueling Club. And one is that, the Hufflepuff kid that thinks was being attacked by the snake then does get petrified, which, like, oh my God, stupid kid.
Justin.
Yeah, but if anyone's seen the Puffs the musical, like, they talk about him, and oh my gosh, you have to see it if you're ever in New York. It's hilarious, and Justin Finch Finley is definitely a great character in that play. But Harry gets taken to Dumbledore's office, and it's the beginning of the chapter is actually the first time we kind of see the office, and we meet Fawkes, the Phoenix. And Harry has this, like, conversation with the Sorting Hat. He's having all these, like, identity issues that I think have been hinted at prior. And I really like this sequence because then we get that flash later, which is, I don't think we want to discuss that because I feel like that's going to be next time we talk. I don't think that chapter is in this chat, but it's just really cool. Like, it's a good look at Dumbledore and Harry alone, which we always get a little bit of every book, but I think this one, it's almost like Dumbledore is kind of wondering if Harry is a little bit evil, and trying to see if Harry's going to lie to him to his face, and he does. And I think that to me is like a really nice character development that I enjoy at the beginning of this chapter. And then,
well, and it also, we were talking about, you know, what does Dumbledore know about what's going on in the school and stuff. And so when Harry is alone with him in his office, like, I mean, I guess he doesn't have to tell Harry anything, but like, so Dumbledore just like gathers all this information and doesn't really seem to do anything with that information. He just like lets things happen as they're going to happen. Like that would have been a good time to be like, Harry, listen, because even if, let's say he doesn't know exactly, but he has suspicions and he thinks Harry is lying. Like, you're the adult here. Like, this kid is 12. Be like, listen, Harry, I think you know. Like, I think you know some things. You need to tell me what they are. Like, a lot of bad stuff is happening, and we need to figure something out to stop it from happening. Like, you need to tell me what you know right now.
Quit listening to your 12-year-old friends who
Right.
don't know as much as I do.
Right. But like,
and it's clear he's reading Harry's mind.
Right.
So
Okay, so
that Harry's hearing the voice, like he knows
Right.
all of this. And when the first time you read it, obviously you don't know he can read minds. And if she did make it so like he didn't tell him, then you know, I understand why we didn't see that, why she doesn't include that from a writing standpoint, from a plot standpoint.
Right.
But yeah, it's very frustrating.
So do we agree that Dumbledore is using legilimens on Harry during these times?
Yeah, they reference it every time they talk about his eyes. It's like that's when you know he's implementing it, and Snape is too. I mean, Snape. They talk about Snape's stare a lot, and it's not like he's having a fan fiction stare. This is like a legilimens stare. So it's like I'm initiating eye contact with you, and now I'm reading your mind, and you don't know, and I'm all up in your mind, and you have no idea. It's very, very inappropriate. And also just like give people more options to tell the truth. That's what I think. Exactly what you said, Jamie. Ask again. Keep asking until they tell you. He asked him one time.
Adults. Let the kids.
Right.
They need to be the adult in this story and quit letting the kids. I mean, I would love to see J.K. Rowling write the books. You know, we joke about the books from Draco's point of view. Let's see the books from Dumbledore's point of view.
Right.
Yeah, people want a Snape rewrite. I want to see Dumbledore manipulating, like even in the movies, the new movies, he's clearly manipulating Newt Scamander, and just like, ew, you're just a gross human. You're no better than your lover Grindelwald. Like, you guys are the same, even though you think you're better. You're not. And like Rita Skeeter had it right. That's all I'm gonna say. But there was two more things. One is just like Penelope, and oh my god, I love that. I love that we get that little snippet of like, we don't know they're making out, but they totes are. Her and Percy. And then and when they're down in the dungeons, and it's just like hilarious. Percy's such a great ridiculous character in this that we don't know the whole time we don't know he's doing all this, and then we find out, and it's just like, oh, this is so hilarious. And then what's her face? Hermione. This was my favorite, is that Hermione basically pulls like a Ron and Harry on Ron and Harry. And it's just like, well, you know, I mean, I guess if you don't want to find out that Malfoy is the heir of Slytherin, we can just like abandon this now. And, you know, all this work I've put in, it's like for nothing, like whatever. I don't want to do this. You're right. It's stupid. It's a bad idea. I'll just do it alone. Like, she's just so, and they're like, oh.
Learn psychology.
Yeah, I was like, oh, Hermione, you've so been missorted. That's all I'm going to say. I loved that bit.
Really quickly, Lorena mentioned Puffs the musical. If you are not in the New York tri-state area and can't see it, it is available on iTunes for $19.99, and you can watch it there. You can rent it for $4.99 if you don't want to purchase it, and you can sing to your Puff's heart desire there. I was going
It's
to.
not a musical. I just want to let
Oh,
everyone know.
it's not a musical.
I
I
might have
thought it
said
was.
Puffs the musical, but it is not a musical.
Sorry.
It is just hilarious.
Okay, got it. I was going to mention the Harry Potter musical that Darren Criss and his friends did when they were in college, because their portrayal of Draco Malfoy is hysterical. And I think of that when I think of Draco and how his portrayal, it's a girl who plays it. Her name is Lauren something, I can't remember, but
I
she
think
does.
it's Lopez.
Lauren Lopez, she's fantastic, and her portrayal of Draco and how she just is also just such a drama queen, just as much as Draco is. So also very funny. Um, let's continue on with let's see. Uh, what else do we? Where do we need to go? Zinni, what did you have on Polyjuice Potion chapter? Have we talked about where do we need to go?
Yeah, this is the first time that we get to, or I believe it's the first time we get to see the Dursleys kind of play their way in. And, this is, I think during Christmas. I don't have my book with me, but
Yeah, it's over Christmas.
they're opening presents. And so he gets a toothpick, a fucking toothpick. Sorry for my.
I know,
I'm just like so
right.
livid.
Like it's worse
being
than
an
sending him
asshole for the
nothing.
sake of being an asshole. Yeah, send your nephew a toothpick. Ungrateful. But that, it's just, I mean, I can think of nothing else but just cursing at them, because it's just the audacity of really just, yeah, 10 months you don't have them in your house, but then you think that it's, oh, let me just, be a total dipshit and send him a toothpick.
I think
So
another year, don't they send him like a tissue? Another year they sent it, like they send him all this stuff. It's so much worse than if they just didn't send him anything at all. It's ridiculous.
Okay, how do they send him things if they can't send via owl? I want to know how they get there.
Yeah, that's true.
If they aren't,
Right,
they're so opposed to magic.
My parents send her stuff, I think, via owl. So, but they wouldn't. So
right.
I don't know.
Like, yeah, they are going to want nothing to do with all of that magical.
Though maybe
stuff. Like
maybe we're willing to do it just for this toothpick.
Right, like maybe it's that like an owl from Hogwarts goes and like, like stands outside your window and like raps at your window until you like give them something to take as a gift for Christmas. So maybe that's why they sent him so like that. They just give the owl anything to get them to go away.
Maybe. Otherwise, they're going to have the barrage of owls like in year one.
That would be a great trivia for them to answer instead of
everyone at Hogwarts used to shit themselves in the hallway.
How do muggles send post to Hogwarts?
I mean, Hermione's parents would totally play along because they would want to send Hermione gifts.
Sure.
Which is what was happening while she was part cat in the Very Secret Diary. So, which is chapter 13. Because they obviously planned. If the school was in such dire straits and everybody's like, we might have to close the school, wouldn't they force everybody to go home over the holidays?
You would think so, but
I don't know if they can. Like, I think because when they open the school, you always have the option to stay over any break. So
but I mean, under normal circumstances, but I mean, we have people who were like dropping like flies. I don't know.
Sure, but they haven't closed the school yet. So it has to still operate at some level of normalcy in that way. That's what I think. I mean, this is the least, like, I don't have to I can suspend disbelief for this. I'm okay with it.
And even then, it takes them a while to set that curfew. I think it's 3 chapters after this one.
Yes, like finally they do it. Finally they set a curfew and teachers walk the kids back and forth to their classes, but it takes like forever. They should have
50
been
kids
done.
being
Yeah,
petrified, and
they should have been done the first time this happened.
also
go ahead, Sydney. No, go.
Oh, just a quick last thought. I really liked the film version of Chamber of Secrets. I thought it was funny. It's kind of dark, but it's also like the kids are a bit more the actors, excuse me, I should say, are a bit more like developing like their characters. So I couldn't get over how Crabbe and Goyle, both in the book and the movie, just like happily ate the floating cakes. You might as well have written "eat me" on each specific piece, because it's like, how do they get into Hogwarts? How are they passing their classes? I mean, I used to be a teacher substitute, but you know, I mean, I wonder. It's like, wait a minute, like, did their parents buy their way into Hogwarts? And it's just, it, in a sense, it kind of upsets me, because there are kids out there who are not, I mean, there are a lot of kids out there who are not on the same academic level as their peers. So it makes me wonder, I mean, is something being done, or is there like a, extra classes or programs, for, I don't know, I'm going off tangent, but it's like, oh man, that sucks. Cause it's, they're like a butt end of everyone's jokes. And yeah, my heart goes out to them.
Right. It's like they're there because they have like, these magical families, I guess. But yeah, they don't seem to be very proficient in any of this stuff. I mean, they eat food that they see randomly in public. Like that is not that is not a good decision.
Weird to me how Slytherins are portrayed in the book, because it's so not like, none of them fit into what the sorting would make them. Like they're portrayed as like very ugly, very stupid, and just like mean, because they're picked on basically for being ugly and stupid, and so they just become bullies out of that. And it's just like this weird, like, Draco's really the only true Slytherin we kind of meet, and Tom Riddle, where they have that charisma and they have that like ambition, they have intelligence, and they're able to, maneuver around things. So it's just very strange. I always found it strange, like, being sorted Slytherin. No, almost none of the Slytherins that are students in the books feel like they should even be in Slytherin at all. I don't know where they would sort, but like, they don't have, it's not, I wouldn't think Salazar would be like, yeah, you're a pureblood, so you should come here. Like, he didn't take like, Hannah Abbott isn't in Slytherin, and
right.
she's a pureblood. So like, that doesn't really matter. It just doesn't add up that,
that people like Crabbe and Goyle would be
even like
Slytherin, yeah.
Millicent Bulstrode is not portrayed as being the brightest, bulb in the like Christmas lights or whatever. She's just is shown to be this big beastly bully that is, instead of using magic, putting Hermione in a chokehold. Okay, well, that's useful.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's just a weird.
Yeah, I think I think it would have been a good idea to have at least one student in Slytherin who was their age, who was actually just like, a decent person.
Normal.
Who was literally there just to like go to school, and who, inhabited just a lot of
Blaise Zabini.
Who just inhabited a lot of the, things that he, Slytherin valued. Because, along the way, like, we meet Slughorn later, and he's a pretty, solid encapsulation of what, a Slytherin is. And we meet a couple people here and there. But
What
it's
about
like,
Scorpius?
Yeah, but Scorpius doesn't exist yet. He's not
right,
even like an embryo. Right now
right.
he's being possessed by Tom Riddle.
Right. Like they're just these like cherry picked examples of like these anecdotal people that we find who are like, oh yeah, they're Slytherins and like they were okay. But by and large, the ones that we see on an everyday basis are largely pretty shitty.
Yeah, and not just shitty, but like comically shitty. Like Dursley level, like slapstick villain. I don't know. It's just Slytherin pet peeve. So sorry. I feel
Not
like
all
I've had
Slytherins are bad. Hashtag not all Slytherins are bad.
most Slytherins aren't bad.
No,
Only the
but
ones
that's
we
the thing. But you would
see.
never know it from reading the
No.
books. Yeah. Um, but Millicent does have a cat though, because so you know she has a pet. She's got to be at least a little bit okay. And because that's the hair that Hermione takes off, and she turns into a cat. And going into the next chapter, Hermione is in the hospital wing for, it says, for weeks, which
Right.
I thought was weird. Like the bones in his arm grow back overnight. All of these things Madame Pomfrey can fix relatively quickly, but Hermione partially transforms into a cat and she's there for weeks. Like that just seemed like a long time to me.
No, I
And
disagree because I feel like they've kind of talked about, and even Hermione says, like the danger of transforming and like to become an animagus. There's just like if you're changing from a human into something else that isn't human, it poses like this extra danger. You may not be able to transfigure back.
That's true.
So I think maybe it just takes like it has to wear off, and then because it's an animal, it's not a compatible polyjuiceness.
Right.
It just takes an extra long time to do.
That's
9
true.
months, perhaps.
I want to know if Hermione's parents were notified. Like, do they let your parents know when this catastrophe happens?
Does Dumbledore let people stay at the school when people are being
Right.
petrified?
I mean, under normal circumstances, I would say yes, of course they would have to be told. But this is Hogwarts where things like this don't seem to matter. So I would not be surprised at all if
When
Hermione's
Seamus's
parents did not hear a
eyebrows,
word about this.
right? When Seamus's eyebrows get blown off in every other potions class, no, of course not. But I do. I want to come back. You know, we're not to February yet, so I will want to say more when we get to February. There's a couple of other things that happen. What else do you have to say, Jamie?
About this chapter, I really did not like Ron at all in this chapter. He was a dickhead. Like that he and Harry are going to visit Hermione in the hospital wing and like he makes fun of the card that she gets from Lockhart and like, yes, is it like silly and dumb that she like sleeps with it under her pillow? Like, sure. But still she tries to hide it and he like grabs it away from her and it's like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. And he says something really terrible about Myrtle. That's something about like, you know, I don't even remember what it is. I'll have to find it. But that was just like really insensitive about how like her being murdered like did everyone a favor or something. I don't know if anyone else remembers what it was, but it was just like I know Ron jokes around a lot and stuff, but he was mean in this chapter and I did not like it. But he does mention that because the name Tom Riddle comes up in this one, and Ron mentions that is a name he recognizes because that's the trophy he had to polish, and he was still burping up slugs then, and so he recognizes the name. And my question is, why is there still anything in that school that has Tom Riddle's name on it? Because I get that we can't just completely erase unpleasant history because, we don't want to talk about that. That's bad. Like, you have to talk about that kind of stuff. but like people don't even say Voldemort's name because all of these things he has done are just so terrible. They don't even want to say it. But but there's still stuff in the school that has his name on it. I would think they would have and should have gotten rid of that stuff.
They're taking down monuments in the South, Confederate monuments, for reasons.
I thought about the same thing about the monuments. Yes.
We can't have Robert E. Lee statues. Lorena, you're from the South. You're kind of smiling. But
I'm smiling for another reason that I'll get to. Related, but not about America.
Okay. But yeah, we're taking down and pulling down monuments all over the South because the South lost the Civil War. We don't have Confederate monuments up anymore. They should, I mean, I thought the same thing as I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot that is why that Ron had been cleaning off those things, that special services to the school. Oh my gosh, no, not special services to the school. No, get that name off of there. So I totally agree. I don't care what he did when he went to school, which we'll get to because it was 50 years ago in 1943 when that was in World War II. We're going to get to that in my comment there. But no, everything should be scrubbed at that point, because I'm certain in Germany there are not things that are still homages to Adolf Hitler, because they
are you certain though? Because in Spain they still have where Franco's buried is like this giant cathedral. And
other countries do, but Germany does not. They have nothing. Like they have very strict laws. Germany has very strict laws about that kind of stuff. And there are fines and all kinds of stuff. I know other European countries.
Does Italy do anything with Mussolini?
I think they do. I was just talking to my sister about that. I think she had like a friend who went, and it is a thing there because Italy still does have some Mussolini stuff. It's kind of like the I think it's like the Confederate monuments here. Like they're still there, and I guess a lot of people are fine with them or whatever. But there are a lot of people who want those things taken down for that reason.
Yeah, the Franco's grave, it's like it's the Valley of the Fallen, and it's just like I've toured it, but then we drove by it on this trip and I was like explaining it to my husband, like what the hell that was. It's a giant ass cross on the hill, so just for people who have never heard of this. And all these people who were prisoners of war under him were building this cathedral, and the whole thing's just disgusting. And there's a bunch of people who died building it because they were not being fed, essentially. And just like, it's currently a debate there, I guess, do we tear this down or do we not? And they're talking about like some of the commentary is that let's put money into other things like education and infrastructure and just like stuff we need, versus tearing down this giant monument that just sits there. Like, so, but then there's those people fighting back. So it is this is a trophy. It can be thrown away. It can be melted. Like, we know, like, Hermione Granger knows the spell to melt this freaking trophy down, right? So portably in water, like that's what she can do. And I just don't understand. It's not like this giant thing in a hill that you're going to have to like literally demolish out and take away. It's just...
Right. And it's about him entirely. Like, it's not, like...
And it's a lie. Like, his special services to the school were murdering someone with his basilisk.
And
really?
It's literally a trophy with his name. Like, because, we're talking about stuff that they do in Germany. Like, the concentration camps are still there and you can tour them. But that is like that's a memorial, like other people were there. That's you know, people do that to kind of remember those people and stuff. This is literally, it's a trophy that has Tom Riddle's name on it. Like that is just about him. You could get rid of that. That has no impact on anyone else. Like just that needs to go.
I agree. And I mean, there's even, you know, we'll get to it at the end of the chapters, but at the end of the book, I wonder if they even do that. There's no mention that they ever do that at the end of the book. So,
Yeah.
Who knows?
Should we talk about Valentine's Day?
Valentine's Day.
Okay. We talk crap about Lockhart a lot on this thing, and we should, because he's terrible, but I don't actually think this is the worst idea. Like, it's silly and it's kind of dumb, but like these kids are like terrified. They're, you know, their school year is awful. Their friends are dropping like flies. No one who's in charge is doing anything about it. Like, I don't think it's that bad of an idea to have just something that's a little bit fun for the kids. And I think this would have been hysterical in the movie.
Why were we deprived of this in the movie? Because that, I mean, hearing these dwarves sing and dressed as cupids throughout the school to receive and deliver Valentines would have been priceless. I mean, I was cracking up listening to this because I'm doing the books via audiobook, and it's not the official licensed version of the audiobook. It's some other guy reading them, because I can find them on YouTube that way and listen to them while I'm at work. And his reading of them is cracking me up. I was dying. And I was like, this is the best thing, and we were deprived. I say to you, this should have been in the movie.
I know, especially when Harry gets like tackled to the ground by this thing and he sings his Valentine. Like, you know, Harry is going to be bringing that up to Ginny at some point later on in their marriage, like when they're in the middle of a fight or something. It's going to be like, remember that time you humiliated me in front of the entire school by sending me that singing Valentine?
I want to know if the diary made her send the Valentine, or if she did it.
Right.
I could have a.
Why would the diary have her do it though? Because it's possible, but like, what would the reasoning have been?
She's never outed her feelings for him.
Right. Yeah. I mean, could be.
I think that the diary may have helped to boost Ginny's confidence because, you know, remember, she's still this young, impressionable first year, you know, in just from the first interaction that she has with Harry in the burrow. I think this was chapter 2 or 3. She's just like frozen in shock because she's, oh my God, there's this boy. Right. I like him really a lot. And I think by sharing her feelings and her thoughts with this other person who apparently is you know, a good listener, I think that it definitely helps her to kind of feel more assured about some of her actions here on out. So it could be that it's just, you know, hey, I feel good about this, I have more confidence, and I'm gonna send this dwarf to.
Well, and we know that, like, presumably, like, Diary Tom Riddle wants to get as close to Harry as possible. So, I mean, like, I'm curious about how this magic with the diary works. Like, it's very interesting. Like, how much does Diary Riddle know? Because he could have told her to do this, either thinking that, one, like, he doesn't know how Harry feels. Like, maybe it'll like work and they'll start spending more time together and he can get through Harry that way. Or he knows for sure that it will not work and be humiliating. And this is when, like, don't they find the diary in the bathroom after this because, you know, Ginny has kind of dumped it. Like, all these things are happening with the diary. Right. She's freaking out. And so she gets rid of it. And so Harry then finds it. And so he gets to Harry that way. So that's true. I think it is entirely possible that all of this stuff with Ginny is, kind of orchestrated um by the diary. And do we know, like, and we might find this out later, but is she just doing it because she's being manipulated through the diary and like she's an 11-year-old girl? Or is there some kind of like, does it almost put her into this kind of like trance like thing when she's doing that? Because isn't that when she writes on, the wall, like enemies of the air beware? Like, I feel like she was kind of out of it for that.
I mean, we'll talk about it more when she confesses
Right.
later, because she talks about it. She remembers doing it. But she doesn't, she couldn't do anything about it. It was
Okay.
like she was under the Imperious curse.
Right.
So, we've lost Lorena. Her computer has frozen, but
I know.
she made a comment that she's like, poor Ginny, but she's read way too much fanfic, and she 100% felt that Draco sent Harry this Valentine, but said it was from Ginny. I mean, it's possible because Draco sure talks and is obsessed with Harry.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know that there's a reason why people feel that Draco and Harry are, that people ship Harry and Draco, because Draco is obsessed with Harry, and I I can understand it. I can see why people
Well,
would think that.
it's Draco is the one to call it out. Like, "Oh,
Yeah,
that's, that was so embarrassing." So it's like, he doth protest too much.
he
If it,
does.
it could have come from him.
It could have come from him. Um, we see Fudge, and I, I think, don't we see a little bit of Percy in this? I wrote Percy as a Pratt because I think this is where Ginny's trying to explain something to them in the Great Hall, and Percy is like, "Oh, she, is trying to tell her to be quiet about things," and I was just like, "Oh, just shut up and let her talk." And um, I just can't stand Percy. That was my thought on the Cornelius Fudge chapter. Did I skip over your things, Zanib? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, you have
Um,
some stuff about Moaning Myrtle in here that is
Moaning
interesting.
Myrtle. Let's go back to that. I'm sorry, Zanib.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I just a couple of like plot stuff that I started thinking about in this chapter, and also within the following chapter 14. Moaning Myrtle is interesting. I know in the past we've talked about how some ghosts stay in Hogwarts, like Fat Friar, Nearly Headless Nick. With Moaning Myrtle, I'm surprised that even, and I guess we can talk about this later, but she's still there. It's like she still has this unfinished business. And I wanted to, I don't know, I wanted to know more about her backstory, in the sense, like, does she get her happiness? But it's just a minor, really minor thought. I was curious how, and if it's possible for students who happen to be orphans or who don't have any blood relatives in England, in the vicinity, who can't go home to the summer, and because in when Harry's going through the memories, there's a scene where Tom Riddle puts in a request to Headmaster Dippet if he can stay at Hogwarts over the summer rather than returning to his orphanage. And I'm wondering if students are able to do that. Of course, Harry, with the blood, having his aunt alive, and that's a whole different scenario. But I am
Right.
curious to know if it's possible for students who happen to be orphans or whose parents are, let's say, Aurors on a mission.
Right. I would think they would have to be able to work something out. I mean, even if they can't stay like at the castle for whatever reason, like they should be able to set them up in like Hogsmeade somewhere, maybe. Because I
Totally.
mean, yeah, because Tom does ask to stay, and that's where, you know, he essentially, I think he even gets told something like, we may have been able to work something out for you, but you know,
The
we may have to close the school because, you
right.
know, all this all this stuff is happening. Um,
And so that's why he was like, if something were to be able to be done, and that's why he then turns in Hagrid.
right. And because is he's having that conversation with Dumbledore.
I think he does it with both.
With both. Yeah, I think he had talked to Dippet first, and then when Harry comes in, or no, he's talking to Dippet because Harry comes in and he sees Dippet at the
Think
headmaster's office. So, but anyway, my thing is, how much did anyone know? Because he does run into Dumbledore at some point. How much does anyone know about what Tom has kind of done at this point and who he is? I mean, we find out in like book 6. You know, obviously Slughorn has had this conversation with him about, you know, finding out what Horcruxes are. And I know at least in the movie, I don't remember if it's in the book or not, he says something like you don't know what he was like even then.
Right.
So there's obviously something off about him, even as like a teenager at school. And it's one of those, you know, obviously if anyone had known, what would they have done about it, whatever. But I'm just kind of curious as to what especially Dumbledore thought, because like we know that Dumbledore, when he was very young, obviously he and Grindelwald, you know, they got into some dicey morality things there for a while. And so does Dumbledore recognize that in Tom because he knows what that was like himself? Or, you know, I don't know.
I think in 7, when he's Dumbledore was talking to Harry and shows, and they go into the Pensieve and they see Tom at the orphanage, and that Dumbledore sets the armoire on fire and shows Tom that he's a wizard. Um, and he's like, I'm just like you. And they go through some things, and Harry says, Did you know? And he says, Did I know that I had just met the most powerful wizard? And they go through that conversation. I think Dumbledore knew at that point that there was something, even with Tom at that young age, that he could talk to snakes and these other things. Like he knew at that young age all these things about Tom and what he had done, and he had, because they had that things. And I'm only remembering because I hadn't read the books in so long. It'll be great to do this once we get up to those larger books. And I've only seen the movies, but I think Dumbledore knew so much about Tom at that point in those things that he could have seen the progression at this point. So when we're
Right.
seeing teenage Tom in year 6 and 7, that he knew what a unique person Tom was. Now, at what point did he make this diary? Like,
Right.
was that between year 6 and 7, and who had he killed at that point? Was it Moaning Myrtle? Was Moaning Myrtle the one who was the um life that was used to create the Horcrux of the
I think
diary?
so.
And
Yeah.
was that the first one?
Right.
I mean, that's not ever explained when we talk about the Horcrux. Like the Horcruxes, we know that it is one, but that's never truly explained. Is she the life that was taken? So
Let me see. I will try and look that up. Um,
I'm sorry, I'm waxing on poetic about the creation of Horcruxes.
Well, yeah, but it's interesting because then it's like, if what did Dumbledore know and when did he know it? And like, not that it's his sole responsibility, but like, why
He
didn't he
allowed
do
him to come to
anything?
school. He allowed him to come to school and
If,
sort of
yeah,
recruited him.
right, like, should he have stepped in much earlier than he did? And, if he didn't, why not? And do we think those reasons are valid? Or,
I mean, because when you sort of look at it, he's sort of the linchpin between Voldemort and Grindelwald. Like, he's responsible for two of the most crazy dark wizards in the wizarding world. Right?
yeah.
And going back to your point, Emily, about Dumbledore observing Tom's progression, it adds on to that kind of salt on the wound that he didn't even attempt to rehabilitate this kid. I mean, granted, yes, he's had this awful childhood and he grew up in this orphanage, but if there is this even ounce of darkness in him, I wouldn't be surprised if a powerful wizard like Dumbledore could have at least done something, maybe have been more involved, or just to kind of see if there was a way that this child or this, teenager could be tamed or change his perspective on Muggleborns and not have him do these atrocities.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah. We are dunking on Dumbledore a lot tonight. We are not enjoying his choices in this, but I think he's a good character because there's a lot going on there, and obviously with like the Fantastic Beasts movies now, we're getting a lot of good stuff. But like, yeah, he messes up big time at several important you know um points in time, and yeah.
I was surprised he was when uh what's his name? Fudge, when he comes in with Lucius Malfoy, and
Yes.
Dumbledore's like, okay, I'll go, I'll leave my post for the time being. It's like he was ready to go on this vacation, and I'm
He
like, you don't
was,
care at this point, you
right.
don't care at all, do you?
And also
Right.
at this point, as much as like we talked about that a little bit earlier, but like as much as Malfoy sucks, and we know that he does, and we know he has entirely selfish reasons for making this move, I think if you look at it objectively, I don't think like if you were to just tell someone, okay, there's a school, tons of people have been attacked, they don't really know what's going on, there's not really a plan in place to get it to start, they're just kind of waiting and seeing what's happened, you would think it was a pretty good idea if maybe the person who was in charge of that school, took a step back and someone else took over for a while, because clearly that person does not have a handle on it.
Yeah. Totally. So, I mean, it is our first, is it our first introduction to the minister?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, and he comes, and because they think it is Hagrid, and you've got Ron and Harry underneath the invisibility cloak. I do think it's funny that we have both Dumbledore and um, Hagrid talking to thin air, and both Fudge and Lucius are like,
what the fuck? I
"Who
know.
are you talking to?"
Right.
And
Here's my question though. We know Hagrid did not do this, and whatever. But
right.
if the general assumption is that this girl dying at Hogwarts was kind of Hagrid's fault, why is Hagrid still allowed at the school?
Totally.
I mean, you would think that's something that people would object to.
Right.
I mean, this is another one of those things where we're like, what the hell is happening at Hogwarts? But yeah, it's like, oh, this guy was responsible for the death of a student, but like he just, he chills out there now. He works there.
He's the
I
gamekeeper.
yeah, I
It's
think people would think that's pretty dicey.
right.
I mean, he was expelled, but I think when he was, I mean, I think I read this on Pottermore, but he was placed in front of the, he had a trial, and I think Dumbledore vouched for him.
Right. I
So
mean, I
although he
guess
was,
yeah.
But then, I mean, it does raise the question: why is he a teacher since he never graduated?
And we
Right.
go back to that same thing. And it's like, what are the credentials that somebody is allowed to teach? You never graduated, your wand was broken. Why do you get to go back and now teach care of magical creatures?
Yeah.
What is,
And it's like, I love Hagrid. He's so sweet. He's the best. But yeah.
follow the spiders. That's what he says, his parting words as he
Right.
leaves his little hut.
Which is very cryptic advice. And I do not blame Ron for not enjoying that advice at all. I would not want to follow spiders.
Right.
If I see a spider, I am going in the opposite direction. So
That's just so funny. So funny. Zaneeb, you're like, I love Hagrid, but he gives awful advice.
he does.
Does I mean he's a half giant. He sees spiders and hippogriffs as like these cuddly, little plush toys you can play with. But I mean, what compared to wizards going into the spiders den? Come on now.
Right. This is just I can't even begin to think of what it was like trying to have him raising him as a child and what his father must have been growing up with. Like trying to raise him and be like, but dad. So, yeah. Well, shall we go into the Forbidden Forest?
Let's do it.
When we first find out, when it said 50 years earlier, and this was happening in 1943, I was like, so Hagrid was this was all Tom and Hagrid. This was in 1943. So this is the height of World War II. And it kind of baffles my mind because I don't want to get completely political, and I'm sad that Lorena is not on, and I was sort of trying to wait for her to see if she could jump back on. Oh my
Here
goodness.
she is. Perfect
This
timing.
is just so perfect timing that Lorena is back. It's so perfect timing that you're back because we are just at chapter 15. And it's 1943 and it's World War II. And how is everything just going on peachy keen at Hogwarts at the height of World War II? And nobody's getting involved in, the Nazis are bombing the heck out of the UK. And they're just ignoring what's going on around them because Scotland and the rest of the UK is just being bombed to smithereens. And yet they're like, okay, whatever, we're just not going to get involved. But yet they have literally called up every able-bodied young man in London or in the UK to go fight in World War II. So how did all of these people just, here's Tom asking to get out of, I mean, yes, I guess they were a little too young, but if he's like 17, these guys were lying about their age and signing up to go fight Nazis in Germany. So,
well, we know from Fantastic Beasts, we know that they did have some involvement in the First World War, right? Because Newt's brother was some, war hero. And Newt mentioned something about doing something in the war, but he does stuff with dragons.
Right.
But at the end of Crimes of Grindelwald, like Grindelwald uses his weird like skull hookah magic or whatever to show like this vision of the future. And it's like we know that it's World War II and everyone is terrified and they're like, oh my God, no, this can't happen again. So the magical world is like they get wrapped up in it somehow, but yeah, then we go when here, war is just kind of going on. And I mean, I guess, yeah, like it's not going to be at the school directly, but yeah, I am interested to know sort of, and maybe we will find this out as Fantastic Beasts goes further, like what exactly the Wizarding World's role was in around this time in a World War II, in during those years.
Yeah, and
Lorena?
I looked it up, and it's like 45 is when the duel between Grindelwald and Dumbledore takes place.
Right.
So Dumbledore is like not really engaged, I think, with Tom Riddle at this time. Like, I don't think well, we know he doesn't know Tom is gonna become Voldemort, obviously, but like Tom's what, 16 and 43, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And then so he would have been 18 when this duel takes place. And it just kind of is weird. It's weird. It's not weird. It's like bad writing. I think that's what it is. And to me, it's just like bad planning where she wanted to create a side by side politically, like this thing's happening politically in the wizarding world while this other thing's happening politically in, the muggle world. But she didn't, I don't know, she didn't like stay consistent with that, I guess, because she has brought in, oh, well, Newt's brother is fighting in the war, like, well, how involved or not involved are these wizards? And if you're going to say they're secretly involved, then like tell us their stories. Then is it that secret? And like, why is it secret? And what is this international statute of secrecy really protecting? It's just like, it doesn't make, the more you poke at this, the less sense it makes. As someone who is writing about this exact topic, in my fan fiction, but it's the French Revolution, not the 1900s. And it's just like weird. It's exactly that. The more you poke at it, the less it makes sense. And there's nothing really to bring it back or justify it or make any sense out of it. So I don't know.
Right. I just was like, we know that these young men in the 40s were lying about their age because their older brothers were off dying and they felt compelled to go fight in this war. That's what Saving Private Ryan and all these other shows were about, is because they were signing up to go because they could not go to war when others were fighting and they could, they just had to go do this. So it just felt out of place that here we are, existing in a magical world, ignoring what is going on in the world around them. So,
well, it's hard to know also because the only sort of young man we see in this vision is Voldemort, who really does not care about anyone or anything except, himself and his, this
power
like
and
pure
killing.
blood power
Right.
killing thing. So yeah, again, I would be interested to know kind of what other, young Hogwarts students, especially the ones who are Muggle born, like they're going to have a really strong tie to what is going on in the non-magical world.
And I mean, I guess it would seem like the perfect place for Voldemort to set up his Horcruxes, like get the kills needed to make the
Mhm.
Horcruxes, all these other things. So I don't know. It just, if a war is coming, this is where you need to go. And I don't know. Just that was
Yeah.
just my thought.
Yeah,
So,
I would guess we're going to get maybe more information about all of that in the coming Fantastic Beasts movies as we kind of inch ahead in years
yeah.
there. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we get.
I don't think
Sorry,
she would
sorry for
have
that digression.
put the war hookah in there if
Right. If we weren't going to see
gonna,
it.
yeah, if that wasn't gonna play some role other than a manipulation scene in one film of the whole series.
Yeah.
So I agree with that.
Perfect. So, okay, well, let's talk about the spiders and Aragog.
Did we mention how it's kind of weird that Hagrid and Voldemort are like the same age? Have we mentioned that?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't, but I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, they were in school together. Like, yeah, the age people are and the timeline. Like, there are moments where it kind of takes me out of it, and I have to be like, oh, right. Like
Hagrid
this all
never
happened around the
seemed
same time.
that
Yeah,
old.
Hagrid seemed so much younger.
But maybe giant blood like ages slower. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know.
They almost seem like friends, though. I mean, are we moving on? I would just a quick thing. He calls Hagrid by his first name, so it's not like he's oh wait, no, Hagrid's his last name. His first name's Rubius.
Yeah.
But it's just their interaction. It's almost like they're not friends, but they have this like mutual understanding, like you would with a fellow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I legitimately forgot his first name was Rubius until you just said that.
He's like Madonna. Or
I did too. I was like, wait, what do you mean Hagrid's not his first name?
Well, I brought that up because like in the other in the books it's if you're enemies you always refer to your enemy as their last name. Hence hey Potter, Drake,
Right.
Yeah.
Crabbe and Goyle. Draco calls them Crabbe and Goyle.
Mm-hmm. But he's that dick. Like he would.
I know it's a fanfic, but there was one fanfic that says it's a Slytherin thing. You don't, if you're not there, you don't consider them your equal. You don't call them by your first name. So
that sounds like a very Slytherin thing to do.
Oh, I missed the Valentine. Did we talk about the Valentine?
We did talk about the Valentines. Yes.
I said your thing though. I said your thing.
She did bring it up for you. Yes.
Thank you.
I did, because I did say that Draco doth, and Jamie agreed, Draco doth protest too much. So.
Whoever smelt it dealt it.
That's right.
All right, let's talk about this damn
Talk about the spiders. And that's why we think Laura skipped out on this whole book is because Laura doesn't like spiders.
Just so she could avoid it entirely.
So that's why she's avoiding this whole thing entirely. Yeah, we had one episode of TARDiscuss that had to do with spiders, and she's like, I can't watch this episode at all. So Lorena filled in with a sock puppet. So it was really kind of funny, and we did a whole sock puppet episode. So that's why we think Laura isn't here for this book.
I mean, I don't like spiders. I'm not that afraid of spiders. So like, I don't really have a problem watching the movie or anything because like he talks, like Aragog talks. It's not like, I don't know.
So it reminds me so much of the spider from Lord of the Rings that it's just like, it's almost like a rehash of that.
Does that one talk?
Yeah.
Shelob, yeah, she does.
Okay.
She might be more of like a telepathic talk to you, but she definitely talks, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I have not seen her.
And she's all about murdering you.
Oh,
so.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's Charlotte from Charlotte's Web, but she's a very nice spider.
Totally. So, I was going to wait to disclose until we got to book 4, but I worked at Warner Brothers and on the 4th film, and I found out when we were working on all of these things that when these were both coming out, they had to wait and separate Lord of the Rings and the Two Towers and the Shelob scene. They because Warner Brothers distributed and has the rights to the Harry Potter movies, but New Line Cinema did the Lord of the Rings movies. They're all the same parent company, so they were trying to figure this all out because Two Towers and the second book and Chamber of the Secrets is the second book. They had to change when the films were coming out because they were all coming out sort of around the same time. They had to change where the cut was in Two Towers and where the spider scene was and put it because they couldn't have two giant spider movies coming out at the same time. So I was like, that's interesting.
So interesting to me.
Yeah.
I love Lord of the Rings. And like, it kind of feels a little weird in the third film. So
Totally.
It's like it should have already happened and we've moved past this, like plot wise.
But it's because Harry Potter and the Chamber of the Secrets came out that they had to make a deal with Peter Jackson they're like, please move it to the third film. Harry Potter has just come out. They're going to put this, but because Warner Brothers is the higher property, they put it there. So.
Wow. Peter
That's
Jackson
interesting.
Super interesting. I know there was on the commentary for, I think it's the second Pirates of the Caribbean movie. I think it's on the writer's commentary. What?
I also worked on that one when I worked at Disney.
Okay, yeah. I think they talk about, because in that one, that's when they have the Flying Dutchman that like pops up out of the water, and I think that was around the time when the fourth Harry Potter movie was coming out, and the Durmstrang ship comes up out of the water, and I mean both of those movies have them. So I don't know if it's because they were different company. Like this situation you were talking about sounds much more like confusing, but it was just like, I think they were doing the CGI on their movie, and they see that like Harry Potter is going to have this movie that is also going to have a boat coming up out of the water, and they're like, well, that's just great, like
right.
But it worked out. Both franchises seem to do just fine.
Yeah. So
okay, I want to jump in because I'm reading this now, and the first word of this chapter is summer. Summer was creeping over the grounds around the castle, and like we started this in November, and we read 5 chapters, so it's like they jumped a hell of a lot of time. Like there is like the whole spring didn't matter. Once the protection went into place, everything was boring, I guess.
It's May 24th, and that's why, because when I was like, I graduated high school, because the next chapter that happens was May 26th, and that's when I graduated high school. That's why I was like, this is weird.
How do you remember your graduation date?
I know, I have no idea when I graduated.
I have, it's a friend's birthday, so.
Oh, okay. So Aragog, this is one of those things. Hagrid's judgment, man. Like the thing I wrote down is like Hagrid is like that woman who like had that pet gorilla that she just like thought was adorable and like dressed up in outfits, whatever. And then one day the thing just like, it's a wild animal. So it like went after some friend of hers and like mauled the woman almost to death. And it's like, oh, I can't believe he would do that. Like, yeah, he's a wild animal. What are you doing treating this thing like a pet? Like, Hagrid, I know you love the animals, but this giant spider, this is not the kind of thing that you should be making friends with.
And I'll say like Newt Scamander is like so much better with magical creatures than Hagrid. Like Hagrid's just so it's another commentary on Dumbledore. Like, why the hell are you hiring this guy who's really underqualified to do this job? And it's just like, what? You're endangering everyone in the school and all these creatures by allowing him to do this. Like these roosters are dying and he can't even figure out why, and then you're gonna just like have him secretly harboring a dragon, what is this? A ranchula? What is this?
Acromantula.
Thank you.
Yeah, like Hagrid wants to treat everything like it's a pet. And Newt cares about the animals and loves the animals, but is
He respects
very,
them.
yes, like they have their behaviors and their space, and we should be respectful of that and try to, like, his whole setup in his suitcase is like trying to mimic their natural habitat as much as possible for that reason.
Right. He's a conservation and rehabilitation person, and Hagrid's just like, oh my gosh, a squirrel, let me bring it home, and like it bit me, it's okay. Well, it's not, you have rabies now. Like, that's what happens when you bring home a wild pet, like a wild animal, and call it a pet, or it kills your friends. One of the two.
I couldn't get over how diplomatic Aragog came off towards the end when he's like, in respect for Hagrid, I won't eat you, but my kids might. Which was just a great segue for the Fort Anglia. Am I saying it right? I don't think I am, but whatever. For the car to come in and rescue them, which totally gave me Stephen King, Christine vibes. Except this car was good, not evil.
I loved that the car came back. I mean, what are the odds that the car is sentient enough to know that it needed to come back? So, I mean, the only way that they would have been saved is if they were to have stolen the car in the first place. If they hadn't have stolen the car, they would not have been saved. So,
well, and like, true. what did Arthur do to that car? One wonders.
Right. He did a good job on it, because I mean, it's not just like it's not just like it has the ability to fly. Like it obviously has
the Weasley blood in it.
Yeah,
and like a blood protection spell or something.
Right, like he drew the vials of each of the children's blood and poured it on the engine, and it's like, protect my children.
It could just be like his blood is going to be in all of his kids'
It's like what the Dumbledore family has the Phoenix, and the Weasley family has this like old car that just comes to them in their hour of most dire need.
Weasley's senses were tingling. He knew he had to rescue a Weasley.
Right. Spidey senses of another kind.
Yes,
that's hilarious. Oh my gosh! And what does Harry have? Nothing.
No.
That's all Harry has.
He has a vault full of gold.
Yeah,
he can speak to snakes for the time being. He does have a vault. He and the Malfoys are the same in that manner.
Oh, you guys, this chapter, we've got 3 more chapters in this book.
Right, because at the very end of this one, they kind of, Harry and Ron sort of figure out, based on Aragog's story, that he says, the girl died in a bathroom, blah, 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 that it's probably, the girl who died is probably Moaning Myrtle.
Right, because Aragog says he never saw the inside of the castle. He only saw the crate that Hagrid kept him in, and that's it. So,
and he knows exactly what the monster is, though, and he just won't say it because, they don't speak of it. Like, how unhelpful is that? What the hell?
Just say what it is.
That's what Dobby does. Dobby's like, good hint. Just tell me the freaking truth, dude. Yeah. Like, it's not it's he who shall not be named, because we can say his name in this case. Like, what? Oh my god.
Yeah. These hints are
I'm a writer, but that annoys me.
Yeah. Well, we have really talked for almost 2 hours about these 5 chapters and all the nuances of how Dumbledore is the least helpful of any of them. He's using legitimate on students. He leaves at the most inopportune times. I mean, what else?
And he's not like fighting Grindelwald in this.
Right.
Like, what, he's going to deal with the ministry. The ministry's a bunch of buffoons. Like, what are you doing, dude?
Right.
We need a backstory for this, I feel.
I'm
not writing it. I'm not.
I didn't say it.
Damn it. I know, but now I'm write it. No, don't do that. Don't dare me. It's hard for me to say no.
So in 2
I'm
weeks,
saying no.
We'll
we will
finish it up.
We'll be back to finish it up with the last 3 chapters, which is Into the Chamber of Secrets with Ron and Gilderoy Lockhart. And
Yeah, that's a whole lot happens in these last 3 chapters.
right.
Yeah. I mean, they go into the Chamber of Secrets, the whole battle with the basilisk happens. We find out all this information from, Tom Riddle.
We discover this piece of paper that Hermione's had this entire time, but it's been like 5 months, so why would we look in her hand until right now?
We will find out, that
Well, wait, has Hermione been petrified yet? I don't think
she
she's
did
been
get petrified.
Oh
yeah.
yeah. They don't see the spider alone
No,
because
we
she's
skipped over
not
what she did.
around.
Which
Yeah.
chapter did she get petrified in? Did we skip over that?
The one when they go. I think it's before Aragog. I think it's like right.
Yeah, I think it's in the Cornelius Fudge chapter.
It's at the beginning. It's like when McGonagall's like, Weasley, you better come with me too.
Oh,
and they like
they're about to play Quidditch.
Yeah, she takes them to the whatever it's called, the hospital wing, and then everyone's sent back to their common rooms, and it's like this ordeal. But Penelope Clearwater's also been petrified.
That's right.
So Percy's very like upset, and then they're all sitting there together. Everything's horrible, very upsetting. And
that's when the Hufflepuffs realized that Harry would never.
That Harry would
not
never do
evil.
it.
And then like Ron and Harry are like, it's time to get out the old cloak and go to see Hagrid, because they had seen Hagrid in the diary.
Right.
You needed me. Like I was gone for this moment.
I know.
And you couldn't even remember what
Hermione. I know. I feel bad.
She's smart. She like uses the mirror, and Penelope should be very grateful to Hermione that she was using a mirror. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
there we go. Okay. 3 chapters in 2 weeks. Join us back here, everybody. And we'll see you soon. Have a great night.
Bye.
Knox.